Welcome to another episode of the Bug Bite, hosted by yours truly, Tech Coach Ralph, where we're engineered to win. In today's episode of the Bug Bite, we are going to go back. We're going to look back a week ago. There was the Crowdstrike software defect. Some people thought it was a cybersecurity attack, but it was a what we were being told a week ago is that it was a software defect that caused pretty much the entire world to shut down. So we are going to look into that to see what's going on, and if we can take some insight. We're going to look at what happened, and then I am going to give you my perspective from a 15-year quality assurance analyst and engineer, QA software engineer, right? I've been senior QA software engineer at that, so that we can. I'm going to share my perspective on some of the things that I think might have happened, and we can go from there, right? So let's jump into it. I got this article from Wired.com, and it is written by Lily Hayman, it's written by Lily Hay Newman. It's written by Matt Burgess and Andy Greenberg, right? So how one bad CrowdStrike update crashed the world's computers. A defective CrowdStrike update sent computers around the globe into a reboot death spiral, taking down air travel, hospitals, banks, and more with it. Here's how that's possible. All right. So we're going to figure out how did this actually happen, or a particular way that it could happen. Not saying that this is exactly how it happened, but it's how it could happen. So only a handful of times in history has a single piece of code managed to instantly wreck computer systems worldwide. The Slammer worm in 2003, Russia, Ukraine's targeted NotPetya cyber attack, North Korea's self-spreading ransomware WannaCry, but the ongoing digital catastrophe that rocked the internet and IT infrastructure around the globe over the past 12 hours, so this was a week ago, appears to have been triggered not by malicious code released by hackers, but by the software designed to stop them. That's a very, very good point. So it says, huge Microsoft outage caused by CrowdStrike takes down computers around the world. A software update, cybersecurity company CrowdStrike appears to have inadvertently disrupted IT systems globally, by Matt Burgess. Two internet infrastructure disasters collided on Friday to produce disruptions around the world in airports, train systems, banks, healthcare organizations, hotels, television stations, and more. On Thursday night, Microsoft's cloud platform Azure experienced a widespread outage. By Friday morning, the situation turned into a perfect storm when security firm CrowdStrike released a flawed software update that sent Microsoft computers into a catastrophic reboot spiral. I've seen those Microsoft reboot spirals back in my days. A Microsoft spokesperson tells Wired that the two IT failures are unrelated. Azure being down versus like actual PCs being down, that's two different things, right? The cause of one of those two disasters at least has become clear. A buggy code pushed out as an update to CrowdStrike's Falcon monitoring product, essentially an antivirus platform that runs with deep system access on endpoints like laptops, servers, and routers to detect malware and suspicious activity that could indicate compromise. Falcon requires permissions to update itself automatically and regularly, since CrowdStrike is constantly adding detections to the system to defend against new and evolving threats. The downside, which is this is the downside of any auto update, right? The downside of this arrangement, though, is the risk that this system, which is meant to enhance security and stability, could end up undermining it instead, right? Which is exactly what happened. It's the biggest case in history. We've never had a worldwide workstation outage like this, says Mikko Hipponen, the chief research officer at cybersecurity company WithSecure. Around a decade ago, Hipponen says widespread outages were more common due to the spread of worms and Trojans. More recently, global outages have happened on the server side of systems, meaning outages often stem from cloud providers such as Amazon's web services, internet cable cuts, or authentication and DNS issues. And that's because a lot of things are running on the cloud now. Less things are actually making it to your computer, but if they do make it to your computer, then you can be victim to malware, spyware, Trojans, worms, all that type of stuff, right? All right, so CrowdStrike CEO George Kurtz said on Friday that the issues were caused by a defect in code the company released for Windows. Mac and Linux systems were not affected. The issue has been identified, isolated, and a fix has been deployed. Kurtz said in a statement, adding, the problems were not the result of a cyber attack. In an interview with NBC, Kurtz apologized for the disruption and said it may take some time for things to be back to normal. So I'm going to tell you this right now, Mr. George Kurtz, which I'm sure you already know, but just a simple apology is not going to cut it. You are going to be looking at tons and tons of lawsuits. I wonder what the market cap is for CrowdStrike, because this is a pretty big deal. And we're going to also be looking into what was the issue and what were the actual, like, I'm just curious to see. I wish I could see like the test cases that were written, the release process. Are they using CI/CD? I'm just curious about all that, right? So let's go here. In a more detailed update Friday evening, CrowdStrike wrote in a blog post that the root cause of the crash had been a single configuration file pushed as an update to Falcon. The update was specifically aimed at changing how Falcon inspects named pipes in Windows, a feature that allows software to send data between processes on the same machine or with other computers on a local network. CrowdStrike says the configuration file update was aimed at allowing Falcon to catch a new method that hackers were using for communication between their malware on victims' machines and command and control servers. The configuration update triggered a logic error that resulted in an operating system crash, the post reads. So, and that's the thing I'm trying to understand, what were the testing protocols that did not have this tested? All right. Once we get to that, I'm gonna go through all my questions about this. All right. Security and IT analysts searching for the root cause of the gargantuan outage had initially thought it must be related to kernel driver updates on the CrowdStrike Falcon software, due in part to the fact that the file that caused the crash ended in .sys, a system file, the file extension kernel drivers use. Kernel drivers are the software components that allow applications to interact with Windows at its deepest level, the core of the operating system known as its kernel. That highly sensitive level of access is necessary for security software, so that it can run prior to any malicious software installed on the system and access any part of the system where hackers might seek to plant their code. As malware has improved and evolved, it has pushed defense softwares to require constant connection and more extensive control. Right? The deeper access also introduces a far higher possibility that security software and updates to that software will crash the whole entire system, says Matthew Suit, head of detection engineering at the security firm Magnet Forensics. He compares running malicious code detection software at the kernel level of an operating system to open heart surgery. Yes, that's what he's comparing it to, all right? All right, so CrowdStrike noted in his blog post that despite the fact that the configuration file that caused the crash ended in the .sys file extension, it was not in fact a kernel driver. Yet it does appear that the configuration file was used by the driver and altered its functionality in a way that caused it to crash, says Kostin Ray, who worked at Russian security software firm Kaspersky for 23 years and led its threat intelligence team before leaving the company last year. During his years at Kaspersky, Rao said driver updates for Windows softwares were closely scrutinized and tested for weeks before they were pushed out. In this case, he suggests the configuration file may have been a far less scrutinized update that nonetheless able to change the way the kernel drivers function and thus cause the crash. It's surprising that with the extreme attention paid to drivers, this happened. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying exactly. That's why I want to know, what exactly were the steps. I would love to see the test cases, but I'm gonna say we're gonna get to all those questions at the end. All right. One simple driver can bring down everything, which is what we saw here. It says Microsoft requires developers to get its approval for kernel driver updates, which entails the company's own careful inspection process, but Microsoft wouldn't necessarily require any such approval for a configuration file. A Microsoft spokesperson told Wired that the CrowdStrike update was responsible for bringing down a number of IT systems globally, and added that Microsoft does not have oversight into updates that CrowdStrike makes in its systems, which is perfectly fair, because They're building software that's going to be installed. So any software that runs on Windows, like Microsoft's not going to be inspecting each of those softwares, because in my opinion, this is on CrowdStrike, not on Microsoft. Because if you, let's say you just go into a computer, a Microsoft computer, and you just start deleting and manipulating the files on that, on that computer, the system files, it can also tear down your computer. So to me, it's not a Microsoft issue. It's a CrowdStrike issue with bad software development. And that's why they are responsible for fixing the problem, right? Ryu adds that even so, CrowdStrike is far from the security firm to trigger Windows crashes. Updates to Kaspersky and even Windows' own built-in antivirus software, Windows Defender, have caused similar blue screens of death crashes in the past years. He noted, every security solution on the planet has had their CrowdStrike moment, Ryu says, this is nothing new but the scale of the event, right? So cybersecurity authorities around the world have issued alerts about the disruption, but have similarly been quick to rule out any nefarious activity by hackers. The NCSC assesses that these have not been caused by malicious cyber attacks. Felicity Oswald, CEO of the UK National Cybersecurity Centre, said, officials in Australia have come to the same conclusion. Nevertheless, the impact has been sweeping and dramatic around the world. The outages have been spiraling as companies, public bodies, and IT teams race to break the machines, which involve manually taking machines through a series of corrective steps, including rebooting. In the UK, Israel, and Germany, healthcare services and hospitals saw systems that they used to communicate with patients disrupted and canceled some appointments. Emergency services in the US using 911 have reportedly had problems with their lines too. In the earliest hours of the outage, some TV stations, including Sky News in the UK, stopped live news broadcasts. All right, let's see. So global air travel has been one of the most impacted sectors so far. Just what airlines do now, right? Huge lines formed at airports around the world, with one airport in India using handwritten boarding passes. In the U.S., Delta, United, and American Airlines grounded all flights, at least temporarily, with a dramatic graphic showing air traffic plummeting above the U.S. All right. The catastrophic situation reflects the fragility and deep interconnectedness of the internet. Numerous security practitioners told Wired that they anticipated or even worked with clients to attempt to protect against a scenario where defense software itself caused cascading failures as a result of malicious exploitation or human error, as is the case with CrowdStrike. This is an incredibly powerful illustration that our global digital vulnerabilities and the fragility of core internet infrastructure, says Ciaran Martin, a professor at the University of Oxford and a former head of the UK's National Security Centre. The ability of one update to trigger such a massive disruption still puzzles Ryu. According to Gartner, a market research firm, CrowdStrike accounts for 14% of security software market by revenue, meaning its software is on a wide array of systems. Ryu suggests that the Falcon update must have triggered crashes in other parts of the web infrastructure, which could have multiplied the disaster. CrowdStrike is big, but it can't be this big, Ryu says. Airports, critical infrastructure, hospitals, it cannot just be CrowdStrike everywhere. I suspect we're seeing a combination of factors, a cascading effect, a chain reaction. So that's the thing, right? If CrowdStrike accounts for only 14% of the security software market revenue, then how many companies are actually using it, So it is I don't know. It's curious. I'm very curious about what's going on. So Hyponen from WithSecure says his guess is that the issue may have happened due to human error. I'm pretty sure it is in the update process. An engineer at CrowdStrike is having a really bad day, he says. Hyponen suggests that CrowdStrike could have shipped software different to what they had been testing, or mixed up files, or there could have been a combination of different factors. Software like this has to go through extensive testing. That's what we do. That's what CrowdStrike, of course, does. You have to really be careful about what you ship, which is tough to do because security software is updated frequently. And and that's what I can easily see that on the merge, something extra that shouldn't have been in there got merged by mistake without anybody noticing, and then that's probably the part that caused the I guess that's one of the options of what could have happened, right? So while many of the impact of the outage are ongoing and still unraveling, the nature of the problem means that individually impacted machines may need to reboot manually rather than through an automated process. It could be some time for some systems that just automatically won't recover, CrowdStrike CEO Kurtz told NBC. The company's initial workaround guidance for dealing with the incident says Windows machines should be booted into safe mode. A specific file should be deleted and then rebooted. The fixes we've seen so far means that you have to physically go to every machine, which will take days because it's millions of machines around the world, which have the problem right now. Hyperman says with Secure. Systems administrators raced to contain the fallout. The large existential question of how to prevent another similar crisis looms. That's good. That's a good question, right? People may now demand changes in this operating model, says Jack Williams, Vice President of Research and Development at the cybersecurity consultancy Hunter Strategy. For better or worse, CrowdStrike has shown why pushing updates without IT intervention is unsustainable. All right. So that is the article for today. So let's talk about some questions that I have, what I think might have happened. All right. So with this whole CrowdStrike thing, when I first heard about it on last Friday morning, people were like, "Oh my God, it's just I'm pretty sure it's a cybersecurity attack." And at the time, I had no idea what was going on. But after I heard the company that it was surrounding, I had never heard of CrowdStrike before. But after I heard about the company, I'm like, "Oh, they're a cybersecurity company." They pushed out an update. I'm like, "Oh, it sounds like it's going to be a software defect, failing in testing than anything else." So then as the day is going by, and it's like, oh, okay, so it's causing a blue screen of death on Windows, and they push out an update. And then once I read the fix, because I was at work and we got notified of if we were having that trouble from one of our vendors. If we're having this trouble, this is the fix to do, and it's the same fix about, oh, you go and you boot into safe mode, and then you go and you delete this one particular file, then you reboot again, it should be fine. So I said, oh, okay, cool. So this sounds like it is a software defect. And so some of the questions that I had is, what were the testing protocols? So number one, where is this company located? Who are how is their QA staff, their QA team staffed? I would love to see the test cases to see what was tested. How was the biggest operating system platform in the world? How was that left off, right? Do they test X amount of operating systems for Windows? We're at Windows, I think we're at Windows 11 now, maybe 12. Do you test Windows 10? How is that testing conducted? What is your testing environments? So let's say you're in dev and you're testing in a dev environment. Okay, now when you go to a staging environment, how do you test there? And then to the production is the final release. So those are some of the questions that I had. I would love to see the test cases. I would love to see the test execution. How could this have happened? So it could just be the engineers and the QA people. Does CrowdStrike even have a QA team? You would think they would, but a lot of times companies now are saying, you know what? We're not going to have QA anymore. We're going to be using the engineers to do the QA. So it makes me really, really curious how that all went down. And then now, once the release is pushed, how soon do you start realizing that this is really going to be affecting people? See, that's one of the reasons that when I set up my computer, I don't like it to be auto update. And then if it has to be auto update, then I want it to be let's say, give it a few days out. So if I would say update on Wednesdays, but if this was released on Wednesday, I probably would have got in my scenario, would have got caught. But if it was released on Friday and I say, okay, I want auto updates to be done on Wednesday, I could see everyone having issues, and then I can prevent that from actually happening on mine. But it's hard to figure out when these companies are going to actually release their cycles, especially when you're using Agile. It made me ask so many questions, but my number one rule is not to attribute malice to what can be easily explained with incompetence. All right. So I think CrowdStrike really messed up. Now there's been talks about, oh, how could this happen to to so many companies and stuff like that? It's like the market share. My thing with that is that this was two totally separate companies. There was Microsoft and then there was CrowdStrike. And based on the work that CrowdStrike did, it took down what Microsoft did. So, and like I'm saying, if you were to you could easily recreate this issue yourself. If you were to go into your Windows computer and you were to delete an important file, right? The computer would not start up properly. So I don't see what this has to do with the market share or how big the company is, stuff like that. No, it is for me. It is on CrowdStrike's end. Oh well, why should CrowdStrike be able to take down Windows and all these other computers? Well, companies prefer to use Windows. That's number one. Number two, you give CrowdStrike the power and the authority to be able to do that by number one, choosing them as a company, but number two, by allowing them to make these type of modifications to your system where you don't have direct access. Because let's say you had to install this on your own, right? And then you see it causes you trouble when you would say, hey, everyone else, don't install this at the company, because then you're not going to actually be able to. Your computer's going to crash, right? So I think there is I think people are looking, because Microsoft is so big, so they're looking to blame Microsoft. But when this is actually, in my opinion, on the side of CrowdStrike, so I don't know. I don't see this as an opportunity to break up a company or companies and stuff like that. It can happen. It can definitely happen, but it sucks even more when it's user inflicted. But at least when it's user inflicted, you can always fix it back. When it's like one of those hacks or scams and stuff like that, the amount of effort to recover all of that is so much more hectic. All right. So that is our episode of the Bug Bite today. Hopefully you found that helpful and informative. Yeah. So as more information comes out, we'll review this. We'll keep our eye on it because I'm curious to see all the questions I asked about the test cases, about the QA team, about how did they test it, all that good stuff. If they have log test executions, because it seems to me pretty impossible that you would miss out on the biggest operating system. Right. So with that being said, like the shirt says, no days off. Let's run it up. As always, if you like the shirt, click on the link for the shirt. Check out the store, see all the cool things that we have. Do me a favor before you head out, like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and go over to techcoachralph.dev, sign up for the Patreon, get access to exclusive content as well as when I do office hours. And if you need one-on-one coaching, check out the coaching plans, sign up for a tier today, and let's run it up together. But on that note, this has been another episode of the Bug Bite with Tech Coach Ralph. We are out.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos.